your life is on the line and you know that you're on an oxygen tank and they're going to put you in your head, see what you do. Because the bottom line is that me, I'm one person. I can never miss.
Guy's not being loyal to you. How could you be loyal to him?
Yeah.
And whether you're your father or not. So, you know, but it's always been hard because it was my father.
The word came down, this guy had to go. You know, we didn't know nothing about it until the last minute. And I liked him. I liked Billy. He was a nice guy, but...
Welcome to the show.
Since I was a kid, I try to put myself in positions where if it was a sit down, I would be right. Because if you're wrong in a sit down, you die. You know, yeah. and today they stopped maybe 15, 20 years ago, maybe when all this RICO shit started in the 80s, they stopped killing and guys just get you know, the guys like that never would have got away, the outlaw kids. But I have to tell you, I heard a lot of the stories and a lot of these guys, what are you supposed to do when how you got in prison was because of people not doing what they're supposed to do based on the oath you took. So what kind of fucking asshole do you have to be to sit in prison and protect all the guys that just out and out fucked you? I just don't get it. But I understand you took an oath. So I stay neutral on that. I'm not in the mob. I'm not. I know them all. I've been through a lot in the earlier years, and I also know that there's a big difference between a guy like Juicy and a guy like Chinky, and guys like Gravano and
Dominic Sicali.
Yeah. So you know, who's what do you do when you're in the hole? Because I was there.
You sit there.
And you sit there and you stare.
You think.
And if your mind takes you, and the problem I have two major problems. I can't turn the other cheek. I just can't. If I'm right, I can't turn the other cheek. We go to the death. I don't give a fuck.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way.
Okay. The other thing is that haunts me is I have a conscience. And how the fuck do you lay there week after week after week after week waiting for a little meal to come through the slot in the door and thinking about your family, thinking about your kids, thinking about based on the oath, they're supposed to take care of my family, and my family is applying for food stamps, and the kid don't have money for clothes and this and that. How are you a man by just allowing that to happen because of a fucking oath that everybody breaks? I don't get it. On the other hand, if I ever talk like this in front of Chinky or Juicy, they'd slap me around. So I kind of stay neutral, and I listen to Joey Molino, and the last 4 or 5 podcasts you've been cutting them up pretty good. You have a lot of good solid points, but I stay neutral on this because and I have to tell you, Larry Mazza, what he did, and I accept his reasoning that it kind of creeps up on you. You're 17, 18 years old, and you're brought into that life, and before you know it, you put on a pedestal by every club owner, by everybody, and before you know it, it becomes the way of life, and you can't help yourself, because back in them years, all the cops were being paid off, and you basically had a free run. And so I could understand it. So that's as much as I'm going to say. But if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'm not protecting them, but I'm not. To me, everybody has an excuse.
So the reason why I even go after them or expose the truth about them is because I'm not a mob guy either. I was on the streets doing stupid crimes, and I changed my life. I try to better myself every day. I take steps to better myself every single day. Now, these guys come on here and claim that they're up here trying to help kids, but they're clearly just bragging about the crimes they committed while there's someone else sitting in prison because of them, and they're up on the internet boasting and bragging about it. One of the guys, where he had the guy murdered, he went to the social club and did a podcast from inside the social club where he had the guy murdered. Now, if that's being reformed, then wow. I'm not a mob guy. I didn't take an oath. I was a gang member a long time ago, right? The president of the gang thought I was sleeping with his girlfriend. They lured me to a park. They beat the out of me so bad. Guess what? They did me dirty, but I didn't do them dirty back. I didn't go call the cops. I didn't press charges on them. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I walked home. I licked my wounds, and I took care of it, and I walked away from the gang. For these guys to get a chance at freedom and then come on the internet and brag and boast about all this shit they did, like they act like they're still in the mob, like they still have connections, which that's totally false. They think like people that are respectable respect them, and that's not the case. They're not respected. Maybe in private they are. They're not respected on the internet.
I had a little dealings with Nicky Barnes. I don't know if you people know who they are. He's the biggest drug dealer in Harlem back in the 70s. And part of his counsel, there was a young kid called Leon Batts. I had him on my show. He's the only one that's still around. I had him on my show. And what he told me, and this is where we go back to what I said a few minutes back, that you learn how to read people. Some of the people in that council knew that Nicky Barnes could never hold up. He had the connections, he had the power, he got there. But once he got there, the people underneath him, including this kid who was 21 years old at the time, knew through a couple of people that knew Nicky growing up, he's not the kind of guy that's going to stand up. He had a free run for a long time, but the minute they clamped down on him, he gave up with the excuse that they were fucking my girlfriend or some bullshit excuse. But and the same excuse that a lot of people give, and maybe it's a legitimate excuse, maybe it's not. But when the guy that's part of that council tells you, we all knew that when the shit hit the fan, he wasn't going to hold up, and it happened. And like I said before, a lot of these guys, that wind up in the trunk of a car or in the river, and you say, well, what happened? It's just that you just know from reading people that this guy ain't going to hold up. This guy's not going to stand up. There's all different kind of people. I never forget when a friend of mine was in hospice care, and I used to go up there every night, and there was this nurse that come in, and every night when she come in, she would take care of maybe 6-7 patients, and every night when she came to work, there was another empty bed. And I said to her one day, I says, how could you do this? You never have a good day. Never. It's they're born to do that. People are born to be a cop. People are born, you got to have it in you. That's like when I say maybe it's my DNA that won't allow me to do that. I mean, Frank Collada said he tried to kill himself because of what he did. And a lot of them, and I think Larry Mazza, and I think even Mickey Scars and maybe a couple other ones feel terrible. But you know, when you're laying there and you say, look, I made a mistake and I made a mistake and you know, you're not putting a fucking priest in jail. You're putting another mob guy in jail. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying.
What about Dominic Sicali saying my Vinny? He calls him my Vinny.
Yeah, I know. I
Like,
know.
what the is this guy delusional? He thinks like he still has this relationship with Vinny when he hasn't talked to him in years.
And if Vinny gets another trial, Dominic's gonna have to testify again first time. I know all of that. I know. I know. I know. But
Did you know Dominic's suing me?
Well, Dominic, of all the guys, Dominic, he must be pretty well financially. I think he's a pretty sharp guy. If he's not that sharp, he's sharp enough to know to surround himself with the right people, unless he's that sharp and doing it all himself. But he started a couple of business. He laid the platform that when he finally came out to the public, and he already had that. You know, he gave water to countries, Africa that didn't have water. I mean, he already had like a 1% of what Michael Franchise did. You know, so I don't know. It's tough, but I would say the same thing, because many of them, including Dominic, says that you know, aside from it all, I'm a rat, but I'm a man. Okay, well, I have to know, and this is nothing against Dominic. Like I said, I'm neutral, but if I consider myself a man because I'm my own man, I do what I want to do. I ain't taking orders from nobody. If I join the army, it's because I understand I have to take orders from a sergeant or this or that. If I break the law, I understand I have to take a fucking beating or go to jail. If I try to put myself in positions where I don't do that. My whole life since I was a kid, I try to put myself in positions where if it was a sit down, I would be right. Because if you're wrong in a sit down, you die. So I always try to, every decision I make, and I made many major decisions, make believe like after the decision is done, I'm going to a sit down, and I better be able to justify what I'm doing. But if I consider myself a man and I could never do what you guys do, you look up to Vinny. Vinny says, come here now, go shoot that guy. I don't want to shoot him. I ain't. Who the fuck?
He didn't do nothing to me.
Well, that's what I mean. But that he took the oath, so that's the oath. That's what happens. So if I need to know, there has to be many. When you open up the dictionary, there has to be 4 or 5 meanings. What is a man? Is it a man where I think of, where I'm my own man? I'm not taking orders from nobody unless I enlist in an army or unless. But you know, I don't know. I just don't know. I got out of the gangs when I was 15 years old because I realized that, look, if you're in a gang and you don't want to hurt anybody on purpose, but you have to go fight and beat up people because that's what you do when you're in a gang. I could never hit first. It's lucky I'm still alive, because I always had to make the other guy hit me for, even when we were fighting the black kids with the Garrison belts. I just made, my whole arm here is full of scars and bones broken just from between my mother with the square stick and the Garrison belts. This whole arm is fucked up. But I could never hit first. And I'd hit second. You lose 90% of your fights hitting second. I got lucky. I got lucky. But even when I got the guy down, the other people would step on their head. I couldn't do that.
I got sucker punched a lot. Sucker punch.
I can't do that. So I made the right decision by doing what I did. I just got.
Now let me ask you this. On your time growing up and all that, did you ever have situations where maybe someone robbed your car any time where you had to call the police and a legitimate time?
I got in trouble. I got in a situation like that one time. when I was the answer is no, but I'll tell you what I did, because I had that situation. Guy come to my house. I won't go into the whole story. I'll just tell you. Guy come to my mother's house and threatened my mother. And there was money owed. A cousin of mine borrowed money under my name. I didn't know it and everything. He wound up going to jail for 3-4 years. During that time, my cousin died. And because my cousin mentioned my name, the guy come looking for me. I had nothing.
How much was it? Do you remember?
It was bullshit, man. 20,000. It was nothing.
That's a lot of money, man.
The amount of money is relative. I mean, when you're dealing in hundreds of thousands every weekend, and guy,
yeah,
it's bullshit. So anyway, I go to my mother's house, and he tells my mother, he says, your son owes me 20,000. If I'll be back here tomorrow. If you don't have the 20, I'm gonna burn this fucking house down with you in it.
Oh,
so he was hanging out at there was a place in Brooklyn called the 18th hole or 19th, something like 18th hole. And I went there, and nobody would. I think I knew the guy's name. I probably got it wrong, but I asked the bartender, "Is there a Joe here or something?" He just got out of jail. Nobody would answer any questions for me. They didn't know who I was, but I took a shot. Now I got till the next fucking day to find this guy, and I didn't know what to do. So I went to Mario Gigani, Chin's brother. And I was very friendly with him. He was like a father figure to me. I was very friendly with his son, Louis, and his brother's kid, Ralphie, and even the Chin kid, Andrew. But Louis and Ralphie were in the horse business with me. And so I was very friendly with the father. So I go to the father, and I said, Mario. And I told him the story. He says, all right. He says, go back home. Stay with your mother. So I go home. I give him my mother's phone number. I'll never forget, Illinois 86262. IL 8626 was her phone number. So anyway, a couple hours later, he calls me. He says, get over here. He had a house in Westchester, right, maybe 5 minutes from Yonkers Raceway. So I go there, and the guy's sitting there. And he says, this is the guy? He says, yeah. He says, is it true you went to his mother's house? He said, yeah, well, I didn't know how to find them. I just got out there. He said, take a good look. He says, you ever see this guy again? He says, you turn the other way and you run. He says, and as far as the 20,000, you're even. And he tells us two guys there. He says, now get him the fuck out of here. And that was it. That was the only time I ever got in a position, because I try never to put myself in that positions unless I can handle it, or if I could, that I know what's coming. But I survived this long dealing with the people that I deal with the tremendous amount of money that was involved, millions, only because I always showed up. Never ran, always showed up. You can't run from these guys.